Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Tim McGuinness. I'm the Managing Director of the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams, SCARS, a government-registered crime victims assistance and crime prevention nonprofit organization based in Miami, Florida, and Monterrey, Nuevo Leon, Mexico, as well as with offices and affiliates and partners in more than 60 countries around the world. This special conversation is going to allow us to talk with individual scam victims. This is part of a series, so we will be presenting each individual interview, and it gives us an opportunity to talk to scam victims openly, candidly, full transparency. We will not be editing their commentary. We will be presenting it whole, unedited, and complete. What we're talking about today are three topics. The first is to try and get a better feel for the victims around the world, different countries and cultures, about their scam experience itself. We'll talk for a few minutes about that. Then we'll move on to their experience after the scam ended. What was that like for them individually, personally, and also in the context of the country or culture within which they live? And then lastly, to explore a little bit about the challenges of helping, supporting scam victims in different countries and cultures, the barriers that are in the way, the challenges, the opportunities, and to the extent that victims can find support services within those countries. Thank you for joining us, Miss Ohio. I very much appreciate you making the time to tell us about your experience and allow us to record this. So let's begin with the first question. Tell us a little bit about your scam experience, when it started, what it was like, what level of manipulation. Was it a kind, caring manipulation throughout, or were there negative aspects? Did you detect you were being manipulated by multiple people? Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Sure. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to tell my story. So I'll preface it with, before my scam started, I was in a not so good place. So I'm married, and my marriage wasn't going well. And I was approached on Instagram through a direct message from the scammers that they just wanted to chat. So I started chatting with them. And very quickly, I fell for all of the manipulation that they were doing. That within 10 days, I was sending money to help this individual who identified themselves as a contractor with the Marines and was stationed overseas and needed to ship a package to the United States. I agreed to receive the package. Once the package was shipped, there were costs involved to get it out of customs in another country. And I said, I agreed to receive the package. I didn't agree to pay for the package. But the next day I sent money to have this package out of customs, then shipped to the United States, hit more stumbling blocks with that, and more money was needed to be paid. I, at that point, thought it was a scam. This is only like 3 weeks into my 4-month-long scam. And I requested information from them to prove who they were. So pictures were sent to me. So I believed and I paid money, and I was very, very manipulated by what was happening. I was sucked right in. I felt, now I know that this is not true, but at the time I felt I was in love with this person. I was ready to divorce my husband and start a life with this person. About 3 months into the scam, my husband noticed money missing from our account and asked about it. And I gave him wonderful stories of what was actually happening. And he didn't believe me. So I confessed and I said, I met someone, I fell in love, and I was helping him have a package shipped here. My husband asked additional details about this person. I shared with him the name, the photographs that were sent to me. He immediately discovered that it was a scam, showed it to me. This was in December of last year. I didn't want to believe it. So I continued to talk to.
And what is your husband's profession, by the way?
He is a drug and alcohol counselor. And I knew at that point that it was a scam, but I didn't want to believe it. And so I continued to talk to the scammers. And so you asked if I felt that there were multiple people. Looking back on it, now I feel that then once I accused the person I thought I was talking to of not being truthful, I feel like a different person then started speaking to me because the conversations were completely different. It wasn't the loving language and the sharing of songs and the caressing of, emotions. It was strictly, but I need money, but I need to do this, but you said that you would help me and I can't believe you. So it was a very different, what I thought was personality. Now I understand that it was a different person that I was communicating with. So a month later, so in January, after all of the continued requests for money and I said I wasn't going to pay, I said, that's it. It's a scam. I'm done. So I stopped contact at the end of January. And it was a very, very devastating time for me is it okay if I go into the next question?
Well, let me ask the next question. Okay.
Go for it.
So we're naturally segueing now into the scam ended and what that experience was like when it ended, how you felt emotionally, what your search for knowledge and information was like, and how you found help to both support you and propel you on the pathway to recovery.
So when I decided for sure it was a scam and I ended everything, I blocked the screen name on my Gmail account because we were communicating through Hangouts. I blocked that screen name and I deleted them from my Instagram account. And I was devastated because I had been in a not so good marriage, put all my eggs in the basket of, oh, I met this person who's going to be the love of my life and I'm going to live with, to losing that, to then being left with nothing. And so it was a very, very emotionally trying time for me. For 2 or 3 months, I was in a very deep depression and it was hard. It was very hard to get out of. So one of the first things I did, knowing that I needed help, I Googled scam help. Well, actually, I didn't Google it. I Facebook searched for scam support groups and SCARS came up. It was actually the first thing that came up. So I read some articles and I reached out and asked to become a member of the group. And thankfully you accepted me as a member because that immediately started my journey to recover. I learned the process of what needed to happen, which was hard. The whole process has been very hard for me, but I had to make a police report. It took me 2 months to do that. I did that in March. I actually had a good experience with that, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So I started reading the articles. I spent the bulk of my day communicating with my scammers, and so I knew I needed to replace that time with something else. So every time I had that inkling of, I wonder, oh, could it be wrong? I went to the SCARS Facebook page and I read articles, and I would just read until I got myself back to that point of, okay, I'm doing the right thing. I'm on the road to recovery. So it took
Our
several months,
Facebook page or our romancescamsnow.com website?
a little bit of both.
Okay.
I primarily use the Facebook page and the links through that to get to the articles, which it's very easy to navigate. It's overwhelming at first because there's so many, but
So much information, more than you ever imagined you'd want to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it does answer all of your questions, including the questions of why.
Oh, absolutely. Like it really taught me a lot. And it forced me to look into counseling. I was already hooked to a mental health counselor, but I knew I needed a trauma counselor. And I work in the field of mental health, and it was very hard for me to reach out to someone I knew because of the embarrassment factor. But
Heal thyself.
Absolutely. And he was extremely wonderful and accepting. And that was my second step of recovery, is I needed to deal with the trauma of the situation. And it is a trauma. And a lot of people who experience trauma, once you start healing from that, it uncovers a trauma that might have happened previously in your life. And it's all, you can deal with all of it. So it was extremely helpful. I am in a much better place today than I was 4 months ago. I'm now almost 7 months post scam. It'll be 7 months next Monday. And I'm trying not to keep track of that, but it's helpful to a point to think about how much time, but the other part of me wants to just forget. Like I want to forget those dates. So I'll get there eventually.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about the ups and the downs that happened over that 7-month journey?
Sure. So there's a lot of triggers that happen, and those triggers bring you right back to that emotional state that you're in when you're in the middle of the scam. So music speaks to me. I love music. I've always loved music, and the scammers really fed into that because that came out in conversation. So we shared a lot of songs to each other. And so songs are a trigger for me then. So I hear a specific song and I'm right back in it. And for those first couple months, I would cry. I was very sad, and I was very caught up in it. But now I just know I just can't listen to that particular song, or I just move on to something else, and I don't wallow in the sadness of it. So that it's definitely a roller coaster of, I have these really good days and then something happens and it goes down, or there's a reminder of the financial part, which honestly, the financial part for me, which is not the case with everyone that's a victim, is that's secondary to me. And I'm blessed with family that's helping me. And so the financial piece isn't as much of a issue for me as I heal. It's the whole emotional state and healing my family and getting back to what we needed to have as a family to be a successful family. I have children that are in high school and middle school, and so they're young, and they were impacted by what happened as well. So there was a lot of healing that needed to happen with not just myself, but with my family as well.
So for the time that we have left, I'd like to ask you about your thoughts about the recovery process itself, different people's reactions to the recovery process. How can we, for example, SCARS or just society as a whole, do a better job in both creating awareness that support and recovery is available, real support and recovery, not amateur vigilante kind of hate groups, but that real support is available, what is really necessary, and maybe some of your insights on what it takes to successfully navigate this path.
Well, I think a piece, so when I hear what other victims had to go through to make police reports, for example, some police departments are not very helpful or compassionate. I had a very good experience with mine. I live in a rural part of Ohio. And so there's police departments in cities, and then there's sheriff's departments for the county. And I live out in the country in the county that I live in. So I made a report to the sheriff's department. The gentleman and I reported to a male. I was hoping I would get a female. I got a male because I was worried about the reaction that I would receive. He was very compassionate. He said, "I've seen this before. Have you done this?" And I was very organized when I went in to make my report. I had dates, I had copies of information, and they were very supportive. I think that is such a key, because that's usually one of the first steps that people make is they make a police report. Police officers need to be compassionate because it's a trauma that this person has gone through. So I think sending that education out to law enforcement for them to really treat this as a trauma that someone's been through. Other than that, I think it's hard to advertise what it is because people don't know they need it until they're in it.
Right.
So I think I see it. I'm happy to see that SCARS is on lots of social media platforms. And I think the more of us that are also on social media platforms, if we share the information that we see that SCARS posts for the public information that SCARS posts, I think, and I learned this in my own job, is that's how people get information is through social media. So we need to share what's out there so that people have that ingrained in them too, that it's available. If it, heaven forbid, does happen to them, there is a support group available for them to reach out to. I've had different reactions.
One final element, if I can.
Sure.
So over your 7 months, you have been kind of a poster child for how to do this right. So you get a gold star on your forehead. Unfortunately, many do not do it right. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'm not sure what it is about me, why it worked for me. I think part of it is I'm an organized person. And so I like lists and I like to follow lists. So I think that was part of it for me, that how I was successful. I think other people take this route of vigilantism, or they really want the scammers to be arrested and they want their money back. And you have to get to the point of understanding that might or probably will never happen. And so it's more, you've got to heal yourself and move on and not worry about those scammers. I want the scammers arrested too. Absolutely, I do. But I'm not even going to know if my scammers were arrested because I don't know their real names. I just know their screen names. So I think you have to let it go. You have to let that piece go and just accept that you were a victim and that now you're a survivor and you need to move on. And so I try to put that out there for others to hear that you've got to work on yourself. You've got to see a trauma therapist and get over the trauma that happened to you so that you can move on and not be a vigilante, because it's going to be like a drop in the ocean to get the result that you want.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Ohio, so much for joining me today. I so appreciate you're taking the time to help explain what this journey is like to others out there and hopefully be inspired by your message. Thank you for letting us record this today and present it to other victims in the future. Thank you for joining me.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye. I want to thank you for joining us today for this incredible interview and the insights and information about how scams work, the experience that victims face after the scam, and insights into ways in which both SCARS and society as a whole can make the process easier for victims and present better options for their emotional recovery after these events occurred. This video is copyright 2022, Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams, Inc. Thank you for joining us. For more information about SCARS, visit againstscams.org. To learn more about scams and scammers, visit romancescamsnow.com. If you're insisting on looking at scammer photos, visit scammerphotos.com. And of course, to report scams, report them to the Federal Trade Commission, to the FBI through ic3.gov, and on the STARS portal, anyscam.com. Thank you for joining us today.